Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blame It on the Stars. We spill all the tea on what's going on in the universe so you can blame your problems on the stars. It is Jade here.
And it's Kara.
And this week, we have something that you absolutely need to pay attention to. I do not want you to close out of this episode at all. I don't want you to forget about it midway through. I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is very important. This week, we have Mars entering Gemini, and if you're like, why is that so important? We will be dealing with Mars in Gemini until literally March of 2023. So the information we are about to share with you now is valid, does not expire until literally March of 2023. So we're going to need to get familiar and all of that good stuff because some stuff is changing. Some things are happening. In case you missed it, though, last week, Venus entered Leo. We had a pretty rough full moon in Aquarius. If you're still feeling the after effects of that, then definitely listen to last week's before we dive into this week's topic.
And just to give you a heads up, Virgo season begins next week. We will be explaining everything you need to know about the transits and how it affects you.
And with that being said, let's discuss Mars and Gemini after a short ad break that I know you're going to be a real one and listen all the way through until. Welcome back for listening to the ads. Big thank you. Love that. And if you didn't, never mind. I'm not going to say it. Let's talk. Mars enters Gemini. This literally happens on a Saturday, August 20th at 3:57 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Per usual, the date and time are from the website astroseek.com. What you need to know is you are about to be bored and you are going to hate it. I have Mars in Gemini, so my apologies in advance if I talk a lot about myself. I'm just sharing my experiences because you're all going to experience what I experience. Mars in Gemini is very, very curious. There's a lot of things that you might find interesting, a lot of topics you want to explore, skills you want to have. And when you're bored, it's going to feel not so fun because you're anti-boredom right now. Things are going to be moving very fast. Things will be changing quickly. You might jump from one thing to another just because your curiosity is guiding you in that direction. And overall, it's definitely a faster time than when Mars is in Taurus.
Yeah, Mars in Taurus is making everything go so slow. And honestly, as soon as Mars enters Gemini, we are all going to feel the shift. I think one of the big things for this time, just because Mars does deal with our motivation and our physical energy, we're going to be very driven to multitask and be involved in a lot of different things. So while Mars was in Taurus, we were kind of honing in and focusing on one thing at a time. And Mars in Gemini is like the complete opposite. We're going to have lots of interest, a lot of inspirations going to strike, and we might feel like we're being pulled in a lot of different directions, but that's okay. It really is good to embrace your curiosities and interests and just enjoy this as a time to explore new things and kind of just be a little bit more spontaneous.
Yeah. As Kara said with the multitasking, that's definitely going to be huge. You're more likely to assume that you can do everything all at once. Like I said, Gemini energy does not do well with boredom. And certain things that you might have to do might be boring. And there could be other fun things that you can do at the same time. So why not multitask? I will say fun is a thing. Mars in Gemini knows how to laugh. So how this transit will affect you is you can expect to be laughing a lot, really enjoying comedy, good humor, not taking anything really too seriously, but also know that since Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which deals with communication, you might also find yourself talking a lot, or there can be a big focus on communicating or writing or anything along those lines. But if you find that this energy can be a little bit restless, like just know that Mars in Gemini will be satisfied by learning and engaging and communicating. So try to channel that restless energy into those activities. Hence why we podcast. It's Gemini energy.
Yeah, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, our mental spaces too might be very restless. There might be a lot going on, but that's not always a bad thing. The ability to think fast and be able to adapt to what's going on in the present moment, that is really important. And we know with all the Uranus stuff going on, there's been a lot of change. And honestly, for the beginning part of this Mars and Gemini transit, it can be a good time to enjoy making a lot of the shifts and things that came up for us.
Yeah, and as far as your motivation goes, besides seeking to not be bored, some of your motivation might be towards learning. I know, how fun of a topic. I know not a lot of people hear the word learning and think, wow, so exciting. But the desire to want to learn new skills or try new things or learn about something you've never known before will be really high. So if you find yourself shifting more towards documentaries or TED Talks or reading nonfiction or picking up a new hobby or skill, that's all to be expected during Mars and Gemini. One thing that also might happen, though, is since Mars does deal with anger and since Gemini is ruled by Mercury, communication, we can expect maybe more fighting with your words rather than something more passive aggressive. This is more, I'm going to say what's bothering me type of energy. And also, this is unrelated, but as I'm speaking a lot with my hands, you might find that your hands are very active. Mars in Gemini makes for active hands. A lot of people who have Mars in Gemini really benefit from crocheting or playing guitar or anything that involves working with the hands, pottery. So if you're looking for a hobby to try to channel your energy during this time, that might be something you want to explore.
Unrelated but not, Gemini energy really likes word games or puzzles or things that deal with like riddles or jokes. So just a side note that you might also be enjoying those types of activities.
Now, something you might not know, something you probably maybe do know because we've been talking about it since literally last year. It's that Mars does eventually go retrograde in Gemini, and we'll tell you all of those dates like later in the episode when we discuss just a little bit about Mars retrograde, but just have that in mind because what happens during Mars in Gemini will be revisited, and it'll be revisited during a pretty long retrograde. And then again, when Mars will station direct next year, we will be dealing with those exact same themes. So it's really important that you're paying attention to what's happening, where your motivation is at, how you're feeling in that regard. All of that, it matters. So just be on high alert. Now, certain signs will be affected more than others. The first being obviously Gemini placements. Gemini, I'm happy, but I'm sorry that Gemini energy is really going to be amplified. I feel like it's just Gemini energy turned up to volume 100. Like everything that you normally are is there. It's physically happening. It's just a lot of Gemini. And Geminis probably know what I mean. Sagittarius, on the other hand, might find that their motivation isn't as strong. It might be really strong one day and kind of gone the next. Just because of the opposition to Mars, you might find that some days it's there, some days it's not. Some days you're all in, some days you're all out.
And then for Virgo and Pisces, this Mars transit will be square your placements. So you can expect some challenges when it comes to your communication and also your motivation as well. Just because Mars does deal with the way that we're going about things and doing things, you might find that you run into some more blockages or challenges or just things that you have to overcome or find that things are kind of fluctuating. It can be really important during this time to put a little bit of effort or a little bit more attention into the way that you are speaking or communicating with others, just because there can be some misunderstandings or some misdirected energy around this time.
Let's discuss some of the Mars and Gemini key dates, but like key dates in parentheses between now and when Mars goes retrograde, because we don't need to be talking about the key dates of Mars direct in 2023 right now. We'll worry about that further down the line. The immediate ones you need to know. September 1st, Mars will be sextile Jupiter. Now, Jupiter will still be retrograde at this time, but regardless, this is a time to really just expand on all of your abilities. If there's something, again, that you're interested in learning about or that you're curious about, you have the go-ahead to really go all in. And you might find that your motivation and your drive is a lot higher on September 1st.
And then on September 28th, Mars will be trine Saturn. And this is really going to focus in a lot of that Gemini curious energy. It will be a really good time to put in some hard work and dedication and focus in on one thing, aspect of your life, one goal maybe that you're working on. Again, Saturn sometimes can be a more challenging energy, but we have a positive aspect here, so we can expect all of the positive Saturn things, especially too if you're working on something that you want to be long lasting or something that you want to embrace long term. This will be a good time to get started or to be working towards those goals.
And on October 12th, Mars is square Neptune. And the thing with this is you'll need to be careful about deception, right? Like if we think of people deceiving you, saying that something is how you think it really is, or they say that it's going to go a certain way and then the opposite happens, it's kind of a lie. Just be mindful of bad actors during that time. But also too, you might feel very suspicious of others, right? You might not necessarily find it easy to understand if people are, you know, telling the truth or if they are who they say they are. And also, since Mars is anger, Neptune is confusion, this very much feels like picking a fight over something that didn't even really need to happen, or getting angry for no reason other than like you think something is happening and it's not. So I'm sure you all want to know about Mars retrograde. And just so you know, we obviously will have a whole episode on it as we get closer to it. No need to worry about it now. But we thought you probably want to have some of these dates just stored away in your calendar. We're about to be in Virgo season. Mercury's in Virgo. I know we're planning. Let's just let you know them in advance. And also, all of these dates are according to when Mars makes the transits in Eastern Standard Time. So if you are a West Coaster and you check something and it seems a little off, just know it's in East Coast. September 3rd is when Mars retrograde pre-shadow begins. This is when you'll start to notice things might start going a little wrong. Your motivation might start slowing down a bit. Pre-shadow is literally like the coming attractions, right, for what's about to happen. You have an idea. You've seen it because maybe it's right there in front of your eyes right now, but it's not there yet. That's the pre-shadow of Mars retrograde.
And then Mars retrograde officially begins at 25 degrees Gemini on October 30th. And this is when the retrograde officially begins. So all of the themes that were kind of coming up for you that you had already been kind of thinking about, this is really where you see like the action happening in terms of advice or just some basic things to know before we get there. Because again, we will go more in depth. It might be a good idea to get things in writing, to just be aware that people will be fighting with their words or using some deceptive language around this time, and that our anger and other energy can kind of be misdirected. But again, we will go into way more detail as this gets closer.
And then on January 12th of 2023, that's when Mars will station direct in Gemini at 8 degrees Gemini. So January 12th, Mars retrograde's over. So that's when, moving forward, we'll start getting that normal Mars and Gemini energy back. Everything that we just talked about in this episode will come back again January 12th onwards.
Yeah. So between January 12th and then March 15th, that will be the post-shadow time. So that's when things will finally come to an end. So just kind of be aware of it. that there is like a little post shadow thing, but at least the main retrograde part will be over.
And then on March 25th of 2023, Mars will enter Cancer. That is when we are out of the woods with Mars in Gemini. Yay, everyone's happy. Boo, Mars in Cancer. Mars does not perform well in Cancer. We'll talk about that literally next year. But just know the battle's not over, because after we conquer one, we've got another one, March 25th of next year. But that's a topic for 2023, I guess. We always have challenges in life, right? The astrology is never perfect. This is going to sound so cheesy. I just watched that Apple TV movie called Luck with the black cat in it. That's literally the only reason I watched it. But they talked about good luck and bad luck. And if we think about astrology, we have good transits and bad transits. It's never just all good transits. And we wouldn't want that anyway. If things were perfect all the time, we'd never be challenged. We'd never learn. We'd never grow. The same thing was with that movie, you know? If we never had bad luck, we would never learn to pivot. So, yes, things might seem challenging, and you'll hear me say that and be like, wow, it's never going to get better, is it? But that's life. We always have challenges, and challenges should be not dreaded, but looked at as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. And I recognize sometimes I probably sound pessimistic. I am a Capricorn rising, which means I have literally Saturn as my chart ruler, the planet of pessimism at that point, guiding us through this. Just know that in the back of your head. And although we've got some challenges, it'll be okay. I promise. Everything will be okay. Anyways, that's my disclaimer. But if you're curious to know how Mars in Gemini will affect you specifically, maybe you want to know about how Mars retrograde in Gemini will affect you, then we do offer readings. So readings are available in time slots from as short as 15 minutes to as long as an hour. They are FaceTime style calls hosted on an app called Intro. You just select if you want the reading with me or Kara, and we'll be able to discuss pretty much anything you want to know. You can write any questions you have from us, and we can address any of your astrological concerns.
And if you've never booked a reading with us before, then you can use the code STARS, all caps, STARS, for 20% off your first reading. And per usual, the links will be in our description.
And just so you know, next week, Virgo season will be here. So get out your notebooks because it's back to Astro School. Virgo season, it's coming. So you're going to want to put some little dates in your calendar next week. But if you want to stay in the loop with us, and as the astrology keeps changing and you want to know what is in store for you, then make sure you're following us on social media. We are on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at BLME The Stars. We're also on YouTube, posting YouTube shorts and this podcast as well. If you want to subscribe to Blame It on the Stars podcast on YouTube, we would love it. But anyways, that is all for now, and we'll see you all next Monday. Bye.